Okay, we're recording. Hello,
Hello, good morning.
good morning. My guest today is Tracy, and Tracy has a wealth of gifts, which I'm going to allow her to share with you. So, welcome, Tracy. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your special gift?
Of course, welcome, Veena. I am a psychic medium, which I love being. I love passing message from the spirit world. I'm also a healer, past life regression therapist. I work in many, many fields, which I love all of them.
I think it's very natural for you, isn't it? Would you like to tell us when you first noticed that you had these kinds of gifts?
That's really funny because I actually fell into this gift. My son was quite young and didn't sleep. So I went to buy some essential oil from a spiritual shop. While I was there, the lady asked me if I would like to do a tarot course, which of course I said no. But later in the day, I went back and rethought it over with a prompt from my mum saying,
Oh, I've lost your sound.
so I went back, and the lady said she knew I was coming back, but at this time I still thought I had time to get out of it. And she said, it starts tomorrow afternoon. Of course, my mum said, oh, I'll babysit. So I started the course. The funny thing is, I wasn't on it very long because, well, on the beginner's course, because once I started practicing, I thought, actually, I know how to do this, which completely took me by surprise. So they moved me to the advanced class, which was like throwing me in the deep end, but actually it was probably good for me because it made me work harder. From there, I did a Reiki course, which of course then opened up everything because the first time I healed somebody, I put my hands on and I could hear voices in my head and I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going crazy. And then I said to the lady on the chair, you don't know someone called Rosie? She went, oh, that's my grandmother. She died 6 months ago. And I thought, oh my God. And it just went from there.
Wow. So you've been kept busy then working with healing and doing readings
And yeah, and sometimes, Veena, I know it's not everybody's thing, but sometimes I pass messages while I'm healing because they will come through and I will only give them if they're important. But sometimes spirit have got no other way of coming through. So they'll
that's
use
right.
whichever medium is available.
Mm, yeah. And you also teach now, don't you? You have circles.
Yes, I teach circle once a week on a Monday night.
For those of us,
Um,
the viewers
sorry,
who don't know what a circle is, would you
all
mind
right.
just
Yeah, circle is where people come to either develop gifts that they're aware that they have but don't know how to use, or people that are just interested in seeing if they have any gifts, which I have to tell you, most people, everybody has a gift, whether they chooses to use it or not is up to them.
yeah,
And I also
yeah,
get people that come because they just want to sit with similar minded people.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you were saying to me earlier that you had people that are learning really well and they're very gifted. Do you think this is a sign of the times, or do you think you've just been very lucky to have a group of very gifted people?
No, I do think it's sign of the times because I do think people are connecting more spiritually at the moment than probably previously. I've run several circles over the year and I've been lucky that we've had lots of gifted people. The circle I have now is large, they're all different ages from 20s to 70s. They're an eclectic mix of the run of life, for want of a better word, but they all have very strong gifts that they just need a bit of a push to work with.
And you give them the chance to practice when they come to circle.
I do, and they can be a right haggle and baggle about it, because sometimes they'll laugh and that, but and play around. But spirit don't mind, because it doesn't silent circle doesn't have to be silent to work. The more noise, the more energy, the more information you seem to get.
And you're saying that they have a bit of a haggle. Do you think that kind of when they're being comical and light-hearted and the energy is very light, do you think that helps spirit to come through?
Yeah, I do, because I think if it's too heavy, it's harder for them to connect. And also, people expect a lot more when it's silent, which is not really how it works.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think maybe we're just moving all our belief systems, just shifting it a little bit, because whatever we believed in the past, we're finding, no, it's not exactly true, that we can do things a bit differently and be lighter and be funny about things that used to be regarded as so serious.
Definitely, there's definitely a shift in that, and there's a shift in the age of people as well. I mean, when I started, I was in my mid-30s, and I was still young for a medium then, because everybody was old. Now mediums are all ages, and you know what, there's no difference between a 20-year-old medium and a 60-year-old medium, because I just feel it's the way the energy's changed.
Yes, I think so. I think I've been noticing that as we move forward in time, things that used to maybe be taboo or not the run-of-the-mill way of doing things, that's all changing now. And there's this openness that just lets everybody through the door, basically. If they're knocking on, like to
Oh,
try this, I want to learn to read cards or anything like that. There just seem to be more and more people being able to do it and being able to do it easily.
yeah, and a lot of people have started getting messages, and they think they're going crazy sometimes, which of course they're not. And they'll sometimes people will just pop in to where I work to ask a question. And the thing is, they're already getting the messages, the prompt to do something. And sometimes it's just like you end up telling them what they already know. And I say to them, but you already know that, don't you? And they say, yes, but I just need confirmation that I'm not
Confirmation.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, is there one or two experiences that you'd like to share from your students that have been quite profound at any time?
Some of my students have ended up being people I work with. So at one point, I run tarot courses several times a year. But I've had a lady on there. She was very, 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 very gifted, and she'd been getting messages for years, um, but she couldn't get a job. So one day in the shop that I work at occasionally, they were looking for a new medium. So I said, why don't you try this lady then? Because she's really good at this. So they tried her. And so now we work together regularly. So, that was good, because she did something totally different. And now she works within the spiritual field. I have a few people that have actually set up their own businesses doing what I do now as well.
Oh, fantastic. I think it's the mark of a good teacher when your students manage to fly off and do things that you've been teaching them very
And you know what
confidently.
is good is that I'm pleased for them, Veena, because sometimes there's a lot of jealousy in the spiritual field. And
Unbelievably so, yes.
and I remember when my gifts were developing, the lady that taught me almost kept putting down the messages I was getting, as if to say I wasn't that good. And
Mm,
and I remember thinking one day, maybe I just don't belong here anymore. So I
mm.
left, and then afterwards, it felt better, because I felt like actually I know what I'm doing now. I'm not living under somebody else's rule. And it took a long time, but I realized that when I sat in that circle, every time somebody got really good, they were either asked to leave or left all of a sudden. And I think that was, and I feel that was because where I would have been really pleased that somebody was as good as me or better of me, that's not how everyone else works.
No, no. And it's also something of a test, isn't it? Because to be a good medium, you really have to overcome that confidence, don't you? Because you always feel like that can't be right. So I don't really, you know, maybe I'm just, like you said, not good at it. And this, and every step of the way, you keep having to just learn to get over that and be more confident and be more confident until I don't think that ever stops, does it? You still feel like maybe I won't get a message, and then
Yeah, no,
you end up being fantastic.
yeah, because it's always when you think, oh, this is not going to go right, that it ends up being something much better than you expected.
Yeah, yeah,
And I get people that sit in my group that say, I've got nothing. And I say, no, actually, you do. You're just looking in the wrong place for it.
yeah, yeah. So how do you actually help to develop a student? What is it that you would do in a circle that would help them to be better than they are?
What I try to do is every week we will do something different because everybody has not got the same gifts. And that is one thing that I've learned over the years. No one's gifts are less than anybody else's, and no one is better than anyone else, because as soon as we start putting levels in, it doesn't work. So some weeks we might do tarot, and some people are fab at it. Some people it's not their
Not their thing.
no. Other weeks we do mediumship, we do healing, we might work with crystals, we do crystal ball reading, which is not my gift, I will honestly admit that, but it doesn't mean that I can't teach it because I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I would be cheating to give you a crystal ball reading because spirit, I know, would be feeding me the information, not the crystal ball.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We think we're using different mediums like cards or the crystal ball or that kind of thing, but ultimately there's something that's just coming through anyway, regardless of, you know, whether it's palm readings or sand readings or cloud readings, the information still comes through, doesn't it?
Yeah, because really, they're all only tools to develop your connection to spirit.
Oh, that's a nice way of putting it. That's lovely. I hadn't heard that before. Yeah, yeah, that's amazing.
Because
Um,
quite often they're tapping and they're giving you loads of messages and you're ignoring it.
yeah, like people find things, don't they, when they find feathers and pennies and things like that, and they think it's
Definitely.
coincidence. When the other side are just trying to scream out, "It's me, it's me."
And you're right, they do weird things. Because once, when I was first working with angels, I said, give me a sign that you're here. So I'm looking for a feather all day, a coin or something. I realized during the course of the day that I'd been listening to the radio, and every song came on had an angel connection, like Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel, Robbie Williams, Angels. And I thought, oh my God, it's right there in front of me on the radio, but I'm looking for something physical.
Yeah, and some people have that gift more developed than others, don't they? They just hear songs that come on
Yeah.
every time, yeah, out of the blue. So that's lovely. Um, Also, you mentioned that you help people to pass on. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that came out of the blue. And in the beginning, I wasn't aware I was doing it. So I may be sitting somewhere quiet, and all of a sudden I think that I'd been to sleep for hours. In fact, it'd be like I'd spaced out of my body for literally 5 minutes. Um, it wasn't until I was working with someone else that they explained that I was actually being used by spirit to pass people over.
Oh, okay.
And I've worked with Archangel Azrael, of course, is the angel of death and helping souls cross over. And he also works with people that are bereaved. So it's great because he shows me all sorts of things. And sometimes he'll show me people I don't know. And I'll always feel like I'm there with him and I can see them crossing over and moving up.
Oh, that's lovely because I think today we still have so many people that are just afraid of death and dying because they see it as some kind of end. And I imagine, you know, because those of us who have had experiences that show us it's not the end, we know that it goes on, but that still doesn't stop you necessarily being frightened. But we know that there's something more. Um, But those people who don't believe there's anything more, they must be terrified when it comes to death and dying.
Yes. And you do get a lot of people that will come and ask you things like, am I dying soon? And of course, death is something we never handle, because the minute you put a time limit on it, you actually draw it nearer. And I explain to them that there is nothing to be scared of. So, I say heaven is of your own making. Yeah. So if you decide you want to be with your family and your loved ones, that's exactly where you'll go. For us that are more, I suppose, involved in the spiritual path, we know we're probably going to go on to learning more in order that we will return to help people.
Yeah. So, are you sometimes by people's bedsides with them at the time when they're passing, or is it a more of an energetic thing? How does it actually work?
Both. I was with my mum, definitely, when she passed. That was a bit of a shock, because I wasn't expecting her to pass 18 months ago. But
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Tracy.
But in a way, I knew, because one day we were sitting in the front room and she stared into the corner and she said, "Not yet." And I thought, oh my God, she knows it's coming. But I just thought it wasn't coming within a couple of days. But we did
Yeah.
hold her hand, and I did say to her, "Mum, if it's your time to go, then go." Because, sometimes they're waiting for us to give them permission to pass.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, people don't expect that, but sometimes they're in agony, and we need to understand that we want to keep them here because we love them, but
Mm,
also it's not fair to keep them
no.
here.
Mm. I had a
So,
cousin who passed of cancer quite young, and we got to the hospital, which was on the other side of town, as fast as we could. I drove there, and he literally passed once we were there. So we didn't see him alive, but he literally waited. So once we were in the building and he knew we were there, he left then. And I felt that he left because he didn't want us to go through the kind of trauma that we might have gone through if we were there with him in his last moments. His wife and daughters were with him. But I think
oh,
he left, yeah, before the rest of the extended family actually got into the room. So,
I think my dad, when he passed, waited for me and my brother to leave, because me and my brother and my mum had been there all day. We both had very young children. So my mum said to me, "I think you should go home for a couple of hours and come back." Do you know, my brother and I got in the car, and literally 10 minutes up the road, my mum phoned and said, "Your dad's passed away."
mm,
So I don't think he wanted us to see him go.
mm, yeah. And I think sometimes when we're not aware of what their feelings are, we're doing what we think is right. We're bombing in there thinking we've got to be there and it's got to be 24-hour surveillance and, all of this. And
No.
actually, it's not what they want.
No. And my mum said that she had just got up and gone to the toilet when my dad died. And she said, "I've been sitting there for 24 hours and he decided to die when I go to the toilet." I said, "Well, maybe he just wanted to be on his own at that time."
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? How many people also see angels or see their loved ones come to get them. So
Yes.
then they're not frightened when that happens. My own dad told my mum, I mean, she was hysterical, but he actually said, "Oh, the angels have come to get me. I've got to go now." And she was saying, "No, no, don't go," and crying and very upset. And he's saying, "No, it's my time now." But he didn't go exactly then. I think, again, he waited for her to go.
Yeah.
Um, and then he went. And when we saw him, he had this very peaceful, almost a smile on his face,
Yeah.
the body. So he obviously went peacefully, it's some comfort, isn't it, when you know they go peacefully?
Yes. Yes. And it is nice because they seem to look relaxed, as if they've not got to fight anymore.
Hmm.
And I do see angels all around dead people,
Well,
even
that's
as
lovely.
they passed, as if they're still helping spirit to move upwards.
Yeah, that's lovely because that's comforting, isn't it, for anyone that's got terminal illnesses or anything like that. it's comforting for them to know that there'll always be loved ones or people that love them or beings that love them around, and it's less frightening than people might think.
Yeah, I think that that it's definitely. I do know that they see family and everyone as they pass, and it generally is the fear is suddenly replaced with joy. Is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, oh, that's lovely. That's so beautiful. Um, Thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to be a great comfort to lots of people. Um, can I ask you about things that have happened that like really help people, things that you've done that are in your memory that come to mind that's very significant, either in your healings or readings?
Yes, I had a lady that come to me for healing that had she, she was said she was being vain because she didn't want to wear glasses anymore, so she'd had laser surgery. But what had happened is it had gone wrong.
Oh,
So her eyes were worse than when she wore glasses. And she'd got herself into such a state that she actually couldn't work anymore or anything. She had young children, she couldn't look after them. And I think when she turned up on my doorstep, I was probably her last hope.
mm,
Um, we did healing on her for about 3 weeks. And she said, I don't need to come anymore now. My eyes are much better and my health is better. And her mum popped in about 3 months later and said, you know what? She's looking for a job. She's looking after her children again now. And her eyesight may not be perfect, but it is improved. And she just needed somebody to believe in her because she'd been to all these different doctors and that, and they'd sent her to all these different things and treated her like she was off her head because I don't think anyone really wanted to admit they'd made a mistake with her eyes.
mm,
And she just needed someone to believe her. But healing her was really strong because sometimes I blend. So I've done Reiki healing and I've done Rahani healing, the angel healing, spiritual healing. Sometimes I just use what I call source, which is I feel that I'm taking from God, the creator, whatever you want to call him. And it's different. But sometimes when I touch people, they feel like it's getting an electric shock and then it spills through. But I could feel my hands were actually almost like on fire when I was healing her eyes.
wow.
And
Probably
she
giving
said,
her your own, this is God's laser surgery, isn't it?
yeah, I think it is. And a few times I felt it when I'm doing different things. I do a lot of people with mental health issues. So I
Well,
tend,
that's lovely. That's
but
really lovely. I guess,
reading to them, Veena, is very hard because you have to be very careful that you don't push them over the edge, if you understand.
yes,
It's
yes.
better to heal them because then it gives them a chance to process things afterwards.
Mm, mm. That's amazing. That's really good. I'm glad what you were saying about going direct to source because um, I think one of the reasons why some people find it difficult to believe in healing and going to healers and so on is because there's always that little handful out there that are calling things this and that and the other and aren't 100%. They're not what they claim to be, and you know I think in every setting you've always got one or two or three like that give
Oh, God,
everybody else a
yes.
bad name. So you've got a little handful that gives the majority a bad name because of things that they've done.
Yeah.
Um, so that's lovely. And I really like what you said about going to source because that's like going to the CEO. So instead of going to all the workers, which, I'd never put down or anything, but instead
No.
of going to all the workers and the directors and so on, you're going directly to the CEO and getting things done. And that description of your hands being on fire, it's showing you, I think, that that's another level. So that sounds fantastic.
And I think people forget that you can go to source because they're so much worried about I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to lay the room a certain way, do a certain ceremony. I'm going to be quite honest, I don't do any of that. I cleanse the room before I work, and then I just go with whatever comes through.
Yeah. How do you cleanse it? Do you use things, or is it with your mind? What do you do to cleanse the room?
Sometimes I cleanse with my mind. Sometimes I might use some symbols. Other times I just sage, but it's whatever I feel like on the day. There is
So you
no
just,
right or wrong.
yeah, so you're just kind of open. You just open your heart to the information and just follow.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Lovely. Okay, super. I wonder, you had said that you thought 2023 was going to be really big. Do you have any
Yes.
predictions, or would you like to tell us a little bit more about why you think that?
Well, spirits quite often speak to me when I'm doing housework, which is quite weird because it's the only time I'm quiet. So if I'm ironing, I'll get all sorts of stuff. And sometimes I think, what the hell is that about? And then a few weeks later, it'll come up and I think, okay, I know what that is. But the one thing I got this year is there will be a lot more people opening to spirit. So it's like being told to hold the spiritual line. When I first explained this to someone, they said, oh, spirit wants you to hold on the line, but I actually know that's not right. What they said it was like being a soldier. So, you know, when you hold the line in the war. So I feel that there's lots of evolved souls, and there's lots of babies being born this year that will be fantastic in the future. Because there's a whole more host of very strong light workers coming through. But what they told me is 2023 is a huge spiritual awakening. Even for people that have already got gifts, it's like they will be magnified tenfold.
That sounds
and they tell
amazing.
me lots of the old ways. It's like we have a lot of male energy around us still, which is gradually dissipating. So it's like greed, power, money have been God for so long. Yes. It's like now we have the goddesses rising. So it's becoming more feminine operated. So the way the world will change is it will be less harsh.
That's good news. And do you think it's going to bring balance, so that we've got a balance? It's not that the divine feminine will take over,
Yeah,
but what will
it
happen
for
is
balance.
the balance.
Yeah, because it's like years ago, females were revered, but over years we've been repressed and less. But now we're coming back out. So we're becoming back to hold the balance, because without the balance, we'll be on the road to destruction, basically.
Yeah, I think so too. So that sounds amazing, and bring it on kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are there any predictions that you've been given at all apart from that for 2023, or
Quite often, spirit will take me to the USA, and they'll tell me that there's a change of government coming there before it should.
I've heard that before.
Because there feels there's lots of things to be revealed there. There's lots of stuff going on that maybe we don't even know about.
Yeah, I think that's
And
going to be rather sad, isn't it, when it comes out?
yes, and spirit also tell me that they have their own way of cleansing the earth. Yeah. So it's we might find we have a few more natural disasters, I will call them, like your tsunamis, your that sort of thing, because it's just spirit's way of, sometimes there's just too many of us, but it just is their way of doing it, not our way of doing it.
A way of cleaning up, maybe. Yeah, because no one dies ultimately, do they? No one dies.
Really dies. And
No.
quite often, some people are reborn again straight away. Others are, you might stay up there in spirit for hundreds of years before your time comes to revisit. But each time you come, you carry more knowledge. And each time you come, you learn a different lesson.
Mm. Or lots of different lessons.
Yeah, lots of different lessons.
Okay, that's really lovely. Thank you so much. Um, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? Anything that I might not have asked you about that you think is an important message for humanity at this time, or for spiritual people that might be
I
interested in
think
hearing?
that we are all need to have more faith, because the one thing I get for spirit, and I know it's not everybody's boat. I work, as I've said, with guides, angels, and I draw in every spiritual character that I could even imagine, from Moses to God knows who. And quite often I'm like stuck in the field of, when I visit past life, oh my God, here I go again. I've never had a life that is not spiritual in any past life that I've visited. The one thing I learn is that I've been a seer in every life.
Wow,
Um, so it's weird and wonderful, but then maybe that was my purpose to be here.
it sounds like it. From everything that you've said, it sounds like it.
And it's like, the only thing is timing with spirit. And I don't know if you've found this, Veena, that sometimes we're doing a reading and we give people a message, this, and this is coming, and they think it's coming straight away. But spirit have no sense of time.
Mm.
So then they might say, I might not see them for 3 years, and they'll say, oh, everything you told me has come true in the last 3 years, but it didn't all come straight away. And that's because
No,
spirit have no sense of time. So that
isn't
what you're giving them is absolutely correct material, but it
mm,
isn't instant.
no, and isn't that because outside of this 3D reality, this Earth, there isn't any time, is there? So they don't
No,
really measure time in the same way that we do.
no.
And if
So for spirit, 100 years is probably like a second to us.
yeah, yeah. So it's useful, I think, for people to know that, to kind of remember what's been told, but know that it could be 5 years before it actually comes to pass.
Yeah. And also, we change things ourselves because we set a program, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then something else veers us off and takes us somewhere else. And so that path is still there, but it's going to take longer to get from A to B than we originally thought it would.
Yes, yes, that happens a lot in life as well. Yeah. But also, when we take paths that take us longer and out of the way, it's usually because there's some learning, isn't there? There's something that we've
Yes.
got to
It's,
kind of,
yeah.
it looks like a delay, but actually it's necessary for because of the overall progress.
No, definitely, that's 100% true, because there's other things we haven't considered in our route to get there.
Mm, mm,
It's like a bit like manifesting. I had a friend that manifested their perfect job. So they got that perfect job, but what they didn't realize is actually they were out of their house for 16 hours a day. And in the
oh,
end, their wife left them because they took their children because they was never at home. All they did was work. And they said,
mm,
you know what, I've learned now for manifestation that you have to be precise. You have to put your hours, your pay, your family, everything in. It's not just manifesting the job. You've got to put everything in around. It's a lot harder than you think it is.
oh yes, I've had game upon game upon game played with me about manifesting. So if I've asked for say something like a lot more money, could I have a lot more money, please? And I leave it general like that. They play a little game. They give me a lot more money, but it's in a different currency. So it's actually the same amount of money, but because the currency is more, it seems like a lot more money when actually it's the same. And then I think, oh, okay, let me ask this in a different way. And they do that with me all the time.
I know that feeling because a few times, like when you think, oh my God, I've got next to no money. I knew so, and I'll say to spirit, you know, can you give me some money? And I think that's fallen on deaf ears. So in the end, I've now figured it out that I say, I don't mind working for it. I'll do whatever you like. And then all of a sudden I get busy, or it'll come in from somewhere. It's like I've got to be giving to receiving.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think when you have more faith and confidence in your guides, they
Yeah,
do, and we all have them, don't we? We have angelic guides and we have other guides and we have passed on loved ones that are guiding us. There's a
yeah,
whole team, isn't there, that we all have individually.
yeah,
And if you hand over to them and say, okay, you show me, I find that the guidance is much better than when you're kind of just doing it on your own and coming from your own mind, because your own mind will run you around in circles. So if you get that additional help from guides, that seems to be a much nicer way of doing things. That's my own personal
yeah.
opinion.
No, I have times when I get myself so stressed out that I go to them, I'm handing over to you now. This is your life. You do this now. I'll just follow the prompts, and it'll
Yeah,
work. I find, oh, right, okay, I know what I'm doing now. I'll do this. I'll do that, and it'll change.
yeah. I think surrender is a big thing on the spiritual path, isn't it? If you can learn to surrender, like you keep trying things sometimes and nothing works, and then you
Yeah,
say, okay, you know what? I just surrender it. I want to
yeah,
get to A or B, and it hasn't worked how I'm doing it. So please, can you show me the way? And then all of a sudden, it's like a door opens, and you just skip through without any problems.
yeah. And sometimes they'll say, it'll be something you're not particularly wanting to do, and they'll keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you till you do it. And then once you've done it, you think, why did I make such a big deal out of that? That was so easy, but I
Yeah,
fought it so hard.
yeah. There's a lot of things in life like that, isn't there? It seems
Yeah,
like even things like forgiveness sometimes. If somebody's really, really wronged you, and you find it really, really hard to forgive, it can seem like this huge mountain that you've got to come over. And if you can actually bring yourself to the place where you think, oh, do you know what? I'm hurting through this. I just need to forgive and move on. It's like that mountain suddenly becomes like a little grain of sand. And you think, what was all the fuss about? That was easy, and now I feel free. Now I feel able to get on with other things and put that in the past, put it behind me, just take the lesson from it.
yeah, that's 100%, because forgiveness is something we need to do, because otherwise, technically, we punish ourselves as
Mm,
as well as the other person. I have had a client for many, many years. He's a very stubborn gentleman, and his dad and his brother visit regularly, wanting forgiveness. And he will not, the Veena, I must be 8 years along with this gentleman, and he will not accept a message from him, but he can't understand why his life is so restricted and so bad. But and every time, and I've even got other people to read for him, and they tell him the same thing. Yet we're still fighting this.
yeah. I think in the end, the circumstances kind of get you to a place where you recognize that if you don't forgive, it's not going to be easy on you ultimately. There will be things that happen at some point that teach you a lesson.
I, I've even said to him before now, you know what? This won't go away, because when your time comes to pass for spirit, you're going to have to deal with it then. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
still going to be dealing with it, whether you do it here or on the spiritual plane. You're still going to be working forgiveness.
Mm. And is it true that when people move on, when they've gone to the spirit realm, that they actually change and become better people because they suddenly see truth of things that they had no idea of, or their ego wouldn't let them hear. So once they've passed on and they've been shown, like where they were stubborn and where they didn't maybe show love or that kind of thing, that they change and they can come back to you in dreams and so on, and you feel um, their vibration is completely different, that they actually have become more loving and more kind.
Yes, because a few times I've read for people, and people have come through and apologized for their
Oh,
behavior to the
yeah, that's
people.
lovely.
And it's like I had one lady and I said, "Oh, your dad's here and he's sorry." And she said, "Well, he has a lot to be sorry for." And I said, "Jerry knows." And I went on to tell her the different things that he knew he did that was wrong. And she said, "That's fine. That's great that he actually recognizes now that
Mm,
he did those things wrong, because when he was on the earth plane, he would never have admitted those things."
mm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So um, that's brilliant that you know that they can still develop
Yes,
and become better souls because they're not people anymore once they've moved on, but that they can still develop, they can still grow, they can still become better on the
yes,
other side. And I think for people who don't believe, it's nice for them to hear that as well because you know it will give them that
yep,
idea that you carry on growing and changing even after you've left the planet. It's not
definitely.
the end. Yeah.
The other thing I always find amazing, Veena, is the amount of people that think their loved ones are their guardian angels. Now, having worked with guardian angels, I know this isn't true, and I find it really hard to try and explain this to people.
I've
But
had one person that appeared that way, and it's his family that told me afterwards. They said because we were asked to write a birthday card for him, so we did that.
mm,
And I've forgotten his name now, but I was behind the car, one car on the road, with the same name for a very long part of the journey, maybe an hour long.
yep,
And so I happened to message the wife, and I said, "Oh, coincidentally, this was the registration of a car that was in front of me for a very long time this morning." She said, "Oh, I'm glad you got the message. We get them all the time." But she had insisted that he was around because they had two little ones, come
yep.
back to them as an angel and was taking care of them. And that was the first time that I was exposed to it even being a possibility. I wouldn't have thought that it was even possible.
I think, see, I get them as they will come back to be your spirit protector and your guide. Um,
Mm,
Having spent a lot of time working with the angels, I understand that your guardian angel is actually the guardian of your soul,
okay.
not your physical body. So when people say, "Well, why did you allow me to be in a wheelchair?" Well, actually, they can't stop you being in a wheelchair because they're the guardian of your soul, and they will be the guardian of your soul through every incarnation that you have.
Oh,
So it doesn't change each time you have another life. That's always the same one.
right. Oh, that's interesting. Well, you're obviously a wealth of knowledge, and if you wanted people to contact you, you know, if they were interested in anything that you said and need help with either readings or healing or anything like that, can they
Yep.
contact you? Is there somewhere they can come to
Yep.
connect with you?
I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page in my own name, in Tracey Evans. Um, I also work at a shop in Waltham Abbey called Healing Horizons. Um, so any of those places, or they can always contact you, Veena.
Yes, they could. I certainly will be happy to put them in contact.
Thank
Are you
you.
happy for me to give them your phone number? If
Yes, that's
they,
fine.
yeah,
As long as,
okay.
because I know that you would look after me anyway.
Of course, goes without saying. Um, I really want to thank you. You've just such an inspiration. You know so much and you do so much. It's just lovely. I'm very grateful that you spent this time with us, and I hope a lot of people get a lot of help or comfort or whatever it is they need from it. Um, is there one last message that you'd like to leave with everyone that they can go off and do that's going to be beneficial for them?
I think the most thing I think is to keep your faith and your
Oh, yes, you said that.
positivity
Yeah.
high, because without them, um, we just become lower. So whatever your faith is, I have no take on that because you all have your own. Is to
Mm,
keep as strong as possible
yeah,
and
absolutely,
to
100%.
embrace joy in
Yes.
everything that you do, and always be grateful for even the smallest of things.
Oh, that's such a great message. Thank you so much for that, Tracy.
Thank
So
you for having me.
Oh no, you're more than welcome. Thank you. So I'll leave the details. So if anyone wants to contact you, they'll be able to. And of course, yes, if they contact me, I can pass on your number.
Thank
So
you very much.
okay, and let's keep in touch. Lots to
Definitely.
talk about. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
definitely.
Take care. All right.
Take
Bye for
care.
now then. Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.